Chapter 25. By the end of the week, all the teachers had test dates written in chalk on their blackboards, and Luke was spending every spare moment studying. "Why?" Trey asked him one night as they were trudging out to the woods. "Jason can fix your grades, and it's not like your real parents are going to see them anyway." "When you were stuck in your room," Luke said, "didn't you ever want to know anything about the outside world? About whether other people were like you, or different, or whether grass grows the same way all over the world, or how a car runs?" "Not really," Trey said. Luke was sorry that he couldn't explain. It wasn't the grades themselves that mattered to him, but he felt like he had something to prove. Maybe that people from the country, Leckers, weren't so dumb after all. Maybe that Jen's dad hadn't risked his life for nothing, getting Luke a fake identity. Maybe that Luke wasn't wasting time just hanging out in the woods, making jokes with the girls from Harlow, while other third children still had to hide. He was surprised that, with each day that passed, his classes made more sense to him. His teachers weren't really that bad, just distant. The history teacher, Mr. Dirk, could tell fascinating stories about kings and knights and battles, and they were all true. The literature teacher could recite whole poems from memory. Luke did not always understand all the words, but he liked the cadence and rhyme. The math teacher said once, "Aren't numbers friendly?" And he really seemed to believe it. Luke wondered if the teachers were shy too, if they had some of the phobias Trey and Jason had talked about, and were downright terrified of looking their students straight in the eye. The night before his first test, Luke studied through dinner and skipped going to the woods with all the others during indoctrination so he could hunch over in a hallway reading history. Jason mocked him. "What are you trying to do, bookworm? Learn as many big words as Trey? And you could read all night and still not pass your test. Come on." "Leave me alone," Luke growled, eager to get back to the Trojan War. Luke was surprised that Jason stepped back instead of insisting. "Fine," he said. "Waste your time. See if I care." The words sounded like the swaggering boy Luke was used to, but his tone seemed to say something else. So did the set of his shoulders as he walked away. He sounded wary, on edge. Could Jason possibly be scared of Luke? Luke was nobody. Jason was in charge. Luke decided he was imagining things and went back to his book. Still, after lights out, Luke couldn't sleep. He was too unsettled, worried about the test the next day, wondering what his family was doing back home, wishing Jen were there to figure out Jason for him. He even thought back to the advice Jen's dad had written for Luke. Blend in. Who was Luke supposed to blend in with? The boys who trudged blindly through the halls each day? The ones who followed Jason? Or Jason himself? Somewhere in the room, a bed creaked. Luke thought it was just someone turning over in his sleep, but he stiffened away anyway, and listened hard. There was a pat, pat, pat that could have been footsteps, or could have been Luke's imagination. And then the hall light shone briefly into the room as the door was opened and closed. Luke sat up. He crept over to the door and opened it a crack so he'd have light to see by. All the beds were filled with sleeping boys except two, Luke's and Jason's. Chapter 26. Luke took time to grab one of his textbooks so he'd have an excuse if someone caught him out of his room after lights out. "I only wanted to study some more," he could say. "I'm worried about my tests." But the only person who might catch him was Jason. Out in the dimly lit hall, Luke looked back and forth, not sure which way to go. Probably Jason had only needed to go to the bathroom, and Luke was foolish to follow him. Luke headed toward the bathroom first. Why didn't I think to go to the bathroom after lights out, back when I was trying to find a place to read my note? He wondered. But Luke had been too terrified back then to think like that. He wouldn't have dared leave his bed. He had actually blended in quite well. And if I'd read the note right away, I wouldn't have discovered the door to outdoors or the woods. I wouldn't have had those few days of setting up my garden. He still missed his garden. He tried not to think about it, and I never would have gotten to know anybody. But how well did he know his new friends? The only friend he'd ever known before was Jen, and that friendship had been entirely different. It wasn't fair to compare. He sneaked quietly down the hall, feeling foolish. Of course, Jason would be in the bathroom, and he'd only have rude comments and mockery for Luke when he saw him. "Can't even pee without your books, huh?" maybe, or, "Hey, Lecker, we've got toilet paper here and everything. You won't need to use that." The bathroom was empty. Luke backtracked and glanced in his room again. Jason's bed was still empty. Luke went the opposite direction from the bathroom. All that lay down this hallway was the back stairs. Maybe Luke wouldn't look for Jason anymore. What did he think he was going to do when he found him? But Luke was so thoroughly awake now that he decided he might as well study. The details of the Trojan War and the Peloponnesian War were blurring in his mind. He went over to the stairwell and sat down on the top step. He leaned against the wall, opened his book, and began reading, "The Greeks fought battles for..." Far below Luke, someone was murmuring. Luke sat still for a minute, tempted to ignore it. It probably was Jason, but so what? If he was having a secret meeting without Luke, why should Luke care? It wasn't like Jason's gang ever planned anything real anyway. But Luke did care. If Jason's gang was going to help third children, Luke owed it to himself, to his family, to Jen's dad, to take part. Luke eased down to the next step, and the next, and the next. He kept clutching his book because he didn't want to make any noise putting it down. Yet he wondered if he should be making noise, acting normal, so he could come upon the secret meeting casually. "Oh, hi guys. Didn't know you were down here. Can I help?" There was nothing normal about walking around Hendrix in the middle of the night. Luke stayed quiet. When he rounded the corner of the second flight of stairs, he could begin to distinguish words. The only person who seemed to be talking was Jason. Nothing new about that. Luke crouched behind the half wall that surrounded the stairs. He listened closely. "But it's too soon," Jason was pleading. Luke risked a peek over the banister. Maybe Trey was there and would call out, "Hey, Lee, glad you're here. I was hoping you would come." But Jason appeared to be alone. He was talking into a small portable phone. At least that's what Luke thought it was. He'd never seen one before, except in sketches in his science textbook. Jason was facing the other way, so Luke kept watching and listening. "I told you, there's no danger in waiting," he exclaimed. "They're just sitting ducks." Jason was silent, listening. He turned slightly, and Luke caught a glimpse of the side of his face. Jason's expression was set, dead serious. Luke thought about all the times he'd seen Jason joking, joshing, prodding, mocking. Luke wouldn't have thought Jason could be 100% serious about anything. He seemed like a different boy. Frightened, Luke ducked out of sight. "I've got 4, and she's got 2, Jason said, "but I could have more by the end of the week." 4 and 2, and more of what? Luke wondered. "Well, I don't know about Nina," Jason said. "You'd have to ask her, but she says girls are harder to recruit." Girls? Luke thought he'd solved his puzzle. Jason was making plans for some action against the government. Something like the rally, but safer, Luke hoped. He was telling someone how many boys and girls, how many ex-nays were available to help, except the group that met in the woods had 9 boys now with Luke and 5 girls. Hadn't Jason told Luke once that the whole group wasn't brave enough yet to be subversives? Luke wondered whom Jason was counting and whom he was leaving out. Trey was pretty timid. So were several of the others. What about Luke? What if Jason wasn't including Luke because Luke hadn't gone to the meeting in the woods that evening? Or because he knew that Luke was secretly the biggest chicken of all? Luke started to stand up and say, "Wait, count me in." His legs were quivering, but he could make himself be brave. He'd have to. Jason had his back turned to Luke again. He was practically snarling into the phone now. "You want names? All right, I'll give you the ones I have. Antonio Blanco, alias Samuel Irving. Denton Weathers, alias Travis Spencer. Sherman Kaminsky, alias Ryan Mann. Patrick Kerrigan, alias Tyrone Jansen." Jason was saying the boys' real names. Luke was so thrilled he couldn't speak. If only he'd told Jason his real name. He could just imagine hearing Luke Garner, subversive for the cause, coming to the aid of third children everywhere. Forget the alias, it didn't matter. Jason shifted his portable phone in his hand, and Luke had a terrible thought. What if Jason's phone was bugged? Then Luke realized something even worse. Since it was a portable phone, the population police didn't even have to bug it. Luke had learned in science and technology class just last week that portable phones sent out messages indiscriminately. Didn't Jason know that? All the population police needed was a receiver. And of course they had one. They had everything. Luke rushed out from his hiding place and took the last flight of stairs in 2 leaps. He had to get the phone away from Jason before he accidentally betrayed another boy's identity. Jason still had his back to Luke. He was saying indignantly into the phone, "Of course I'll get the others to tell me their real names. They're just cagey. They do trust me. They don't have any idea I work for the population police."